For decades, the United States has been the undisputed leader of the global economy. Its currency, the dollar, dominates international trade and finance, and its influence in technology, innovation, and military power has shaped global standards. Yet today, the world faces a growing question. Could America be approaching its own version of Japan's lost decade? This is not a theoretical concern. It is a question that touches markets, governments, and citizens across the globe. The stakes are enormous because the U.S. economy is deeply intertwined with global supply chains, investment flows, and the stability of the international financial system. The national debt of the United States has now exceeded $34 trillion, more than 120% of GDP. Every year, the federal government continues to spend more than it collects, adding to the budget deficit. Interest payments alone now surpass military spending, a dramatic shift that highlights the rising cost of borrowing. This debt has created what economists call the U.S. debt dilemma, the delicate balance between financing growth and risking long-term instability. Some compare this to Japan in the early 1990s, when excessive borrowing and a property bubble led to decades of stagnation. But while the numbers are alarming, the U.S. has certain advantages, most notably the dollar, which remains the world's primary reserve currency. This exorbitant privilege allows Washington to borrow cheaply and maintain global financial influence. Inflation is a silent but persistent force that slowly erodes the purchasing power of citizens. In recent years, prices for food, housing, energy, and basic services have risen faster than wages, forcing families to save more and spend less. This increase in precautionary savings reduces consumer demand, which is critical because consumption drives nearly 70% of the U.S. economy. The Federal Reserve faces a difficult balancing act. Raising interest rates to control inflation could slow growth and increase borrowing costs, while keeping rates low risks fueling ongoing inflation. Japan experienced a similar challenge during its lost decade, when consumer confidence dropped, spending stagnated, and the economy became trapped in a deflationary spiral. Inflation also affects inequality. Rising prices hit lower and middle-income households harder, while wealthier Americans benefit from investments that often increase in value. This dynamic can create social tension and political pressure, making it harder to implement effective economic reforms. Demographics play a central role in economic stability. Japan's stagnation was exacerbated by an aging population and a shrinking workforce. Today, the United States is facing similar pressures, though less severe. The working-age population is growing more slowly, and the average age of Americans is rising. Social Security and Medicare obligations are ballooning, placing enormous strain on public finances. However, the U.S. benefits from immigration, which continues to support population growth and labor force expansion. Unlike Japan, which maintains strict limits on immigration, America's diverse and younger population offers potential resilience. Yet the question remains, will this be enough to offset the long-term pressures of an aging society and declining birth rates? Automation and advanced technology offer a critical tool in a free market economy to address demographic challenges. As the workforce grows more slowly, businesses must innovate to maintain productivity and remain competitive globally. Industrial robots, artificial intelligence, and software automation allow companies to produce more efficiently, reduce costs, and respond quickly to market demand, giving them a competitive edge. In a competitive environment, firms that adopt new technologies effectively are rewarded with higher profits and market share. Meanwhile, workers who adapt through education and retraining can take advantage of new opportunities created by innovation. This alignment of incentives ensures that technological progress benefits the broader economy, increasing efficiency and supporting long-term growth. When market forces guide both innovation and workforce development, automation becomes a driver of prosperity rather than a source of inequality or disruption. Companies and individuals that respond to market signals thrive, while inefficiencies are naturally corrected, demonstrating the power of free market dynamics to solve economic challenges without heavy government intervention. Innovation has long been a shield against stagnation, and the U.S. continues to lead in key sectors such as artificial intelligence, biotechnology, semiconductors, and software development. Silicon Valley remains a global hub for talent, startups, and investment. In 2024, American companies represented 6 of the 10 most valuable firms in the world, underscoring the country's technological dominance. Productivity growth, however, has slowed compared to past decades. The challenges include aging infrastructure, regulatory hurdles, and education gaps. Innovation alone may not be enough if the labor force cannot adapt. Global competitors such as China, India, and Europe are advancing rapidly, increasing pressure on the U.S. to maintain its edge in productivity and technological leadership. Economic inequality adds another layer of risk. While the top 1% of Americans continues to accumulate vast wealth, millions face stagnant wages, high housing costs, and rising healthcare expenses. This disparity fuels political division and undermines consumer demand. Unlike Japan, which also struggled with deflation, the US faces a combination of high debt, uneven growth, and social tensions that could hinder long-term prosperity. Bridging this gap requires structural reforms, including improved access to education, healthcare, and social safety nets. Without these reforms, inequality could exacerbate economic stagnation and reduce resilience in times of crisis. The US is no longer the uncontested economic superpower it once was. Its share of world GDP has fallen below 25%, and emerging economies like China and India are capturing larger portions of global growth. At the same time, the United States faces geopolitical competition, trade tensions, and shifts in global alliances that affect both commerce and finance. The dollar remains dominant, but countries are increasingly exploring alternatives in international trade and reserves. If these trends accelerate, the US's ability to rely on its currency as a tool for financing debt and projecting power could weaken. Maintaining global influence will require careful diplomacy, strategic investment, and sustained economic growth. While there are parallels with Japan, the US has critical differences. The reserve currency status, immigration, technological leadership, and military influence provide advantages Japan never had. Political flexibility, if exercised wisely, could also allow rapid adaptation to economic shocks. However, the US is not immune to the structural risks that trapped Japan. High debt, political gridlock, aging demographics, and social inequality all pose serious threats. The question is whether America will implement reforms and investments to avoid stagnation or continue on a path that could lead to a decade of slow growth, reduced innovation, and economic uncertainty. The future of the US economy is uncertain but decisive. If policymakers act effectively, investing in innovation, reforming entitlements, and maintaining fiscal discipline, America can remain the engine of global growth. If not, the risk of an American lost decade becomes real, with consequences that ripple across global markets, investments, and everyday lives. Ultimately, the story of the United States is not only about numbers, it is about confidence. Confidence in the dollar, in US politics, and in the nation's ability to adapt. History teaches that great powers do not fall in a single day, but through years of slow erosion. Whether America chooses renewal or decline is one of the defining economic questions of our time. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And tell us in the comments, do you believe the US is heading toward its own lost decade? Or will it prove its resilience once again?